I was in this cave. There was this pressure. It felt like everything was pressing down on me. I see this person that I know he just got to hell. And he's butt naked. Everyone's butt naked down there. And there's 3 women who are demons that are standing around him. I see them as the women that he sees. And they're dressed up like dominatrixes. They're there to torture him. That was his main sin. He's crawling on his hands and knees. Screams that if you heard it in this life, it would blow your eardrums out. It's so loud because their whole body is screaming. But they're also singing like twisted Christmas carols or songs that people liked in life, like their favorite song. So when people say, oh, I heard, such and such music going on down there, it's because that person liked that music and they're using it to torture them and torment them with it. And they say everybody reaps what they sowed down here. They'll say vulgar things like, you're mine now, I own you, you're my B word. And then continue to unconsensually violate people. And she comes up out of this pit, and she liked to gossip. She liked adultery. She enjoyed causing men to commit adultery so that she could break up their marriages. She was like a kid, man. It reminded me of a kid that's like about to get beaten, but he's irritated because she's screaming, so he stomped her with his foot. That psychotic, tormenting laugh. And they get pleasure not from violating people, but from the fear, the pain, the torment. They get pleasure from that. It's not where it ended. She regenerated, and she was still on fire. And he grabs her by the hair, and he's dragging her off. She was a gossiper. So he bends her over the table and pulls out her tongue. Smaller demons. So disgusting, but they would actually cut holes into her, crawl inside of her, and start doing stuff inside of her. They're not fallen angels, those demons. They are the creatures that were alive at the time of the flood. There was no real Christians in hell. There was no people who are Christian and are trying and mess up.
When someone says, that's fake, he's lying.
Lamentations 3. First of all, the demons aren't down there being tormented yet. In Matthew, when they came to Jesus, when he went to the Gadarenes and the man was there with the legion of demons, they said, have you come to torment us before the time? Jonah died and went to hell. It says it right in Jonah 2 in Hebrew. It says that he was in Sheol for 3 days and 3 nights.
So when did it happen when you had the encounter where you saw what happened in hell?
2025. This is when I had my first vision of hell. I was in this cave. There was this pressure. There's this red clay, rotten flesh or something, but it's clay. It's a mucky mire. It's this ancient cave. There's this stone table in front of me. I see this person that I know he just got to hell. And he's butt naked. Everyone's butt naked down there. Even the demons are butt naked. And there's 3 women who are demons that are standing around him. I see them as the women that he sees. And as what he would have considered beautiful in life. And they're dressed up like dominatrixes. They're there to torture him. That was his number one sin in life. That was the thing that he did the most, that he was into, that he hurt people over. He would pay people to do the stuff to him. And you have information to all of their sins, what their main sin was, why they're there, when they died, how old they were. He's crawling on his hands and knees. They're demons behind him. They were like mantis-looking people. Weird face, like an insect, kind of like an ant, but like a mantis. Red eyes, like a human type of torso, but it looked like an insect. Weird curved hands like a mantis, but they were deformed long fingers. And like backwards legs. And they don't all look the same. There's a lot of demons that look very similar. There's like groups or species of demons. They're putting chains around his neck. Old, thick, rusty chains, but I don't know how to explain it other than they are sufficient for what they're supposed to do. I mean, it would look like they should have broken, but somehow they still hold, and they're nasty, and they're tightening them around him real tight, and they're leading him over to this table. I've learned to call them defile tables because people are defiled on it in the worst way that you can ever even imagine. I hear the thoughts of the demons, and they're only thinking about how they're going to torture him, what they're going to do next, what's going to be the worst thing that they can do to get a reaction out of him. And they're pulling his arms apart like this, stretching him out while he's crawling over to the table, and they're going to rip him to pieces. The feeling of hell, it's like I said, it's like this very heavy pressure, but it's also like the worst panic attack, anxiety attack, confusion, rejection, depression, hopelessness, everything. All of your senses are flooded and overwhelmed. It's completely overwhelming. Like a person shuts down from an anxiety attack and can't
Function.
think, can't
But you
function.
keep functioning,
Right.
but overwhelmed.
But there, on top of that, everybody's on fire. There's maggots that come up and just consume a person. People's flesh burning and dripping off. I can still hear it would crackle, boiling hot and rapid boiling, like, and hearing people's teeth grind, like, while they're screaming. If you heard it in this life, it would blow your eardrums out. It's so loud because their whole body is screaming, even though they can't breathe. But they're about to pull this guy apart, rip him to pieces. This one demon rips him in the throat, rips from the top of his throat. And this thing's like 15 feet tall, sticks his arm down his throat, reaches all the way down to his rear, and pulls out his intestines from there up through his mouth as they're ripping his arms apart and as they start to defile him in a non-consensual manner. They pile on to people like an ant swarming something, or like a zombie movie where they just swarm and there's zombies everywhere. And so a week goes by, and this was where the worst vision was at. I went to sleep. I was there again, and I see rows and rows and rows of pits, like maybe 6 foot long, 3 feet deep or something. Even though you can tell they're only a certain amount deep, they still look bottomless. There's people in them. They're on fire. They're burning. They're screaming. They're being eaten by maggots. There's nothing good about it at all. It's terrible. This lady comes crawling up out of a pit. Now, for the people to be in the pits, there's demons all around the pits, right? There's like, pit guards, pit bosses, something like that. I don't know. There was this one that was so tall. He must have been like 30 or 40 feet tall, but it was mostly because his neck was long like a giraffe. But he had weird tumors on him. Like, he was like a yellowish color with like brown spots. And his head was deformed, kind of looked like a horse mixed with like some kind of like anaconda kind of looking thing, mixed with a giraffe somehow. I don't know how to explain it, but he was standing there. There was also ogres there. There was these things, they look like ogres, a lot like Shrek. There was giants. The giants they're all weirdly deformed and misshapen. They all have like a head here, a head on top of the head, a head here, a head here, one little T-Rex arm, and a normal big jacked buff arm, but big long claws, and weird skinny legs with a very buff torso, or head backwards and legs backwards, or head forward, legs backwards, so that it looked like they were moonwalking when they walked. A lot of those demons, they danced like what the dances that we see here today. You see on TikTok, you see Michael Jackson doing all this stuff. I think it was Cab Calloway had to have been inspired by a demon to dance like that, because they move like that. And the music down there, they sing these songs mocking people.
They have music.
Yeah, it sounds like, well, hell has this like, it's like this resonant noise in the background, eerie, creepy music from a horror movie, like background horror movie music. It's awful. But they're also singing like twisted Christmas carols or songs that people liked in life, like their favorite song, Jingle Bells.
Yeah.
They'll be singing songs like that, torturing people, and the way they talk, it rhymes all of their words, and it's almost like they sing their words, and it feels like they're all around you, like when they're talking, and it overwhelms your senses. And they'll be singing things that it's like they're rapping, but they're not rapping, but they sound like some of these street rappers, like the ones that say they blacked out and then they started saying things that are super demonic, and they don't remember what they said or whatever. They sound like that. And it'll be like, they'll be talking, their voices echoing, kind of like when you find a ray gun in whatever that game is. And they'll use songs like that to torment people. So when people say, oh, I heard, such and such music going on down there, It's because that person liked that music and they're using it to torture them and torment them with it. And they say, everybody reaps what they sowed down here. Everybody reaps what they sowed down here. They'll say vulgar things like, you're mine now, I own you, you're my B word. And then continue to unconsensually violate people. I remember watching somebody fall down. They came from hell. They came down almost like a lightning bolt. They hit the ground and it thundered so hard. It was like boom and reverberated. And they were just laying there. And I could hear what he was thinking. He was saying, where am I? Where am I? And he was trying to breathe. And he's going, because you can't get air. You're like gasping. There's no way to breathe. It's like having the worst asthma attack. You can't breathe. And all of his bones were shattered. And it's awful. This lady comes out of this pit, and I don't know how she had the strength to come out of the pit. I don't know what happens. The demon expected it. I think that they control the torture that happens down there. She comes out of this pit, and she's on fire. Her skin is dripping off. Like, and just she will turn into bone, and she ages from like a teenager to the age she was when she died, which was in her 60s, and then back and regenerates. And she comes out of this pit and she looks up, and the darkness down there is like this thick black curtain. It's so dark and heavy, and it feels like it's trying to consume you and crush you and eat you and talk crap to you and everything else.
That's what I've heard. It's like the darkness is alive.
Yeah, it is. And it's so thick, like a curtain. Like, I remember watching this demon weave in and out of it while it was coming to, like, they couldn't get to me. And he was coming in and out, and he moved kind of like those nurses from that Silent Hill movie where it's like, but he didn't have an eye here. It was covered with skin. He had one eye here that was yellow with like a snake slit in it, and these weird teeth that were like pointed in like this and came out. And it was just weird with like translucent skin, but kind of looked like a whitish gray. But this lady comes up out of that pit, and then there's this ogre-looking demon. Kind of looks like Shrek, but like worse. Like Shrek mixed with an orc, mixed with something from like some weird creature from the Lord of the Rings. It's just nasty and huge, tall. Just his head was like he didn't have a neck. His head was like built into his chest somehow. But it wasn't like it was right here. It was like part head, no neck attached.
Yeah.
And she comes up out of this pit, and she liked to gossip. She liked adultery. She enjoyed causing men to commit adultery so that she could break up their marriages just to prove that she could do it. And she thought she was hot stuff. She comes up out of this pit, and she sees this thing, and she starts to scream. The only way that I can describe it is like a helpless little child, which breaks my heart because I couldn't imagine my kids screaming in sheer fear and terror like she did. She looks up and she sees this thing, and he's like, ha 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 ha, because they laugh. They have these heinous laughs. They sound like like psychotic, tormenting laugh. Like, then they get pleasure not from violating people, but from the acts that they do, the fear, the pain, the torment. They get pleasure from that. It's not even from the release of what they're doing. It's from that. She looks up and she screams at the top of her lungs, and she looks up and she goes, "No, please, please, no, please." She was like a kid, man. She was like, it reminded me of a kid that's like about to get beaten by the parent or someone, like savagely beaten for, you know what I mean? And he laughed at her, and he got mad because she was screaming. It irritated him because she was terrified. Like, they get off on that stuff, and then he's irritated because she's screaming, so he stomped her with his foot that was like this big. It was as long as her head was to her body, and he stomped her, and her intestines came out of her. Almost anticlimactically, like they just went, and she was flat. That was horrible, but that's not where it ended. She regenerated, and she was still on fire, and he grabs her by the hair, and he's dragging her off. like this, and he's laughing and she's screaming and her hair is coming out of her head. It's like he's scalping her and it just keeps coming back and coming back and she's on fire. And he takes her over this table and he gets this big hammer like a mallet, so a huge mallet. And he's looking at her and he grabs these big long nails. So she was a gossiper. So he bends her over the table and pulls out her tongue and pulls it out something like cartoonish long, like this, and then goes to hammer the nail. But he's not trying to hit the nail. He smashed her to pieces and laughed about it and was getting off on it. He started calling his buddies over and they started high-fiving, and then they all started to pile on top of her. The smaller demons. It's so disgusting, but they would actually cut holes into her, crawl inside of her, and start doing stuff inside of her, ripping her apart, cussing on her, calling her names and stuff while they're violating her inside of her. The other demons will come, and it was everywhere that could be filled was filled, and then if it couldn't be filled, they would cut a hole, and while the knife was still there, insert themselves, and continue to do that. And when they were done, there would be like other demons standing around, pleasuring themselves, watching it, high-fiving each other, calling their friends over, and they're piled on, and they're all weird, deformed, twisted things. It's like the most disgusting thing you could ever imagine. And she's just screaming, and she can't stop screaming, but her teeth are shattering and breaking, and all this stuff is going on. I could feel what she was feeling. I could smell what she was smelling, and I don't know why the Lord did that. It was horrible, putrid. It smells like death, garbage, dead fish, dead animal, all of the like dead flowers, weed, butted out cigarettes. Like the things that I find the most disgusting, and they hit you wave after wave after wave of this smell that makes you want to die just from this smell. And the demons, they have these like heat waves. I remember one of them was standing there, and it looked like that demon from that Spider-Man movie, Venom, where it would like come off of him.
Yeah.
And massive, was probably about 10 or 15 feet high. It had a snake body. Huge. It was probably 5 feet around at least. It was like a tree trunk. It was bigger than that. It was huge and extremely long, and he had a human body, and he had these nasty claws, and his face looked like venom. But he had yellow eyes that came like this, nasty yellow teeth, and when he opened his mouth, it was like heat waves came out of his mouth from the stink, and he said, "I eat souls." And I looked, and he opened his mouth like, "Argh." And I looked inside of him, and there were humans in him, souls that were on fire inside of him. And then other demons would come along, and they would say, "Give them back. It's our turn. Give them back." And he would defecate them out like human manure, basically. And they would take and drag them off and do that. And they were doing that to this lady. That was the worst. I remember feeling what she could feel. I felt dirty. I felt disgusted. I felt like it was happening to me. And I could see the sins that she was going through replaying in her head. And she was living that out. And I remember hearing this a lot. She was saying, "I wish I listened. Give me another chance. Let me make it up to them. I'm so sorry." And then the next breath she would say, "I hate you, God." And she would curse him out, and she would curse out the demons. "I hate you." And she would start cussing, and they get worse and worse and worse and worse. And I dealt with that for a week. I couldn't sleep. It's been almost a year and a half. When I think about it, I still get like this. And it wasn't even me going through it. I couldn't close my eyes. I was freaking out. 3 hours was the most sleep that I got for that whole week. There were days where I didn't sleep. Like 2 days where I go without sleep, and then I get 3 hours and I wake up. Literally a week later, I was in hell again. And this time I was standing outside of what I can only describe as a cube. It's like a 14-foot wide by 14-foot long cube that it was kind of like it was embedded in almost like in a wall or something, but I could see through it. Saddam Hussein was in there. He was on fire. He was not actually going through this. He thought he was. but he was running from these people that were chasing him, and I saw them chasing him. They started to shoot at him. And then I saw him being a woman, and she was running with a baby. She was running like this, and she's crying. She was trying to protect her baby, and he was having to experience that through his eyes, which he hated. He said, "It's your fault. You should have never been there. You shouldn't have been there in the first place. Why were you even born?" And he's in hell being tormented for this.
What did this woman and child? What did you get? Who were they? And
I don't know who they were, but they were running from something that he had done, and it was his fault that they died. And I saw her fall down on the ground and die holding the baby in that immense sorrow. And he was so mad. And then the demons started laughing, and they started pouring. I'm just going to say this, and I'll leave that a little piece out. They started pouring acid onto his body, but their acid, I think that it was their emissions, to put it politely. But they were pouring acid all over him, and that was part of his torture, which I found out for the acid baths. I didn't understand because he was having acid poured on people. I found that out afterwards. I didn't know anything about him. He died when I was in high school. I didn't care about Saddam Hussein. And then later, maybe a week or so later, I saw that exact lady. They made a monument to her in Germany or something like that. She was a Kurdish lady that died holding her baby. She was gassed to death when he gassed the Kurds in the 1980s. And that same lady, they took a picture of her, and they made a monument, and they made like this memorial in Iraq for her, and that was the lady that I saw, and the baby that she was holding in the same position and everything. I told my wife about it beforehand, and then we found that, and I was like, "You're not going to believe this." And she goes, "That's exactly what you described."
oh man,
After that, I was messed up. I couldn't sleep. I was freaking out. I can't sleep. I don't want to eat. I'm not depressed, but I'm panicking. I can't close my eyes without seeing this. And I said, I just need a hug from God. I just need a hug from God. That night I went to sleep, and it was actually the day before I did the interview with Vlad. And then I had a dream, and he comes to me, and he shows up as my dad in dreams, and that represents God the Father. And I didn't have a good relationship with my dad, and we still don't have a great relationship. And he comes up to me, and I'm thinking I'm in trouble because I did something wrong, and he's going to attack me, yell at me, or something. And I go, "Leave now." I go into defense mode, and I'm getting ready to hit him, and I punched him right in the face, and he didn't flinch, and he looked at me, and he just grabbed me in a giant bear hug, and buried his head into my shoulder and started crying on me with these beautiful crystal tears. And he said, "I am so sorry that I scared you." He didn't have to apologize for that. And I said, "That's all I needed." I said that to him in the dream. I said, "That's all I needed was the love of my father." And I got healed right there. And even though I break down and I cry when I talk about this stuff, that hug changed it to where I don't really have flashbacks anymore.